Hello, I am so excited that you are here for Queen Level Standards. This online event is going to be so amazing for you to really feel into how deserving you are of your Queen Level standards and also building safety and grounding around your presence when it comes to creating, communicating, and then holding those standards in place. So, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Rachel White. I am a coach for ambitious women who desire to bring their creative ideas to life, to make impact, to be fully expressive of who they are, and to be divinely compensated. And I'm so grateful that you are here. You are a queen, you are deserving of queen level standards, and I'm so excited for us to get into it. So, we're going to talk about boundaries and standards. I'm going to explain what the difference between the two are a little later on. We're going to go through a little talk, and then we're going to do some practices to really ground safety in your body when it comes to setting these standards and boundaries. And then we're going to go through a really beautiful guided inner journey that it's going to really connect you to your deserving inner queen. So, to start with boundaries and what boundaries really are and why they're so important, boundaries are important for so many reasons for our overall well being, for our mental health, in terms of our identity and how we relate to ourselves and how we ultimately experience our personal power and the potency of our personal power in which we experience as well. Our boundaries allow us to prioritize our own energy and our high standard vision. And having high access to your energy and having that deep connection to your high standard vision is something that you are so innately deserving of. You are so deserving and you are so worthy to feel such high access to your energy and to feel so intimately connected to the grand vision that you have for your life, and to know that like having the boundaries in place that allow you to experience your power at a level where you live your vision in an ease and effortless state is something you are just so deserving of, and something I'm so excited to see you do after going through this process of creating these really strong boundaries in your life. When your boundaries are empowered, are coming from an empowered place, they are clear and established when you are in your power. There's a difference between holding up a boundary when you're out of your power and creating a boundary when you're grounded in your power. And for boundaries to be really effective and to feel good holding and communicating, they need to be when we're in an empowered state. Our boundaries, when they're empowered, they will allow you to feel safe and to feel free. And if you create boundaries when you're not in your power, they will likely be from a reactive and restrictive place. And it can almost feel like you're putting yourself in a cage to keep the rest of the world away from you. And that's not the place we want to get at when you start to create your boundaries. You want them to feel like they allow you to feel safe, that anything that compromises your feeling of safety, there's a boundary that doesn't allow that compromisation to get into your energy field. And they allow you to feel free to know that you can live your life and you have clear things in place that don't allow other people to steal your energy or for you to overgive your energy. When your boundaries, when they are clear, what they do is sets a space between where your responsibility ends and where another person's responsibility begins. You are responsible for defining that point for yourself. You are responsible for defining and declaring where your responsibility ends. And but that also means taking responsibility for the things that are within your field, within your zone, and allowing other people to take responsibility for the things that are after the space that is beyond what you are responsible for yourself. So the thing is that you can be a really caring, generous, beautiful, loving, and giving person. And, like I feel like you are, if you're in this space, you're an ambitious woman who has a lot to give, and you know that you have a lot to give to the world. And it's because you care about other people, you care about other people's healing and growth, and in whatever specific expression the impact you want to make is, like, you care and you're giving and you're giving. And you can be all of these things and also have really clear boundaries in place, because just because you are a caring, generous, and giving person, this doesn't mean that you have to give everything you have to everyone that asks for it, and even the people that don't ask for it as well. When it comes to holding a boundary, especially if you've been in like people pleaser energy, or in a space where you haven't had clear boundaries in the past in a lot of your relationships, when it comes to putting new boundaries in place, there likely will be an emotional reaction from other people, especially people that aren't in their own power, or people that are just, shocked that suddenly you want to have a different dynamic in your relationship. And that's normal. And I'm going to talk about those dynamic shifts a little more in a second. But when people have an emotional reaction, or just any reaction at all, from you putting in place or holding up your boundary, and you've likely experienced something like this before, like maybe you have tried to say no to someone and their response was something like, "I'll remember this next time you ask me for something." Or, "Are you sure you don't have time? Like, you're not that busy. Like, I'm more busy. I have this, and this." Like, their emotional response is essentially them using an emotional appeal to try to make you change your mind, or to try to make you feel bad about the decision that you're making, which essentially they want you to change your mind and to do whatever it is they're trying to make you do, or to make you loosen your grip or your standard on the boundary that you're having. And the thing is that another person's emotional response to anything is their responsibility. That is their responsibility, not yours. So if they feel disappointed that you are not going to do something for them, even if you would usually do it every single time they asked you in the past, if they feel disappointed by that, that is their responsibility to navigate. If they feel the need to project guilt onto you, that is their responsibility to navigate. If they feel sad or angry about a boundary that you have for your personal energy, again, that is their responsibility to navigate. And this can be something that we really need to accept and that we really need to acknowledge when it comes to putting our own boundaries in place. Because if we take responsibility for how other people feel, we will never be able to have strong boundaries for ourselves, because people are going to have different emotional reactions based on their triggers, based on their conditioning, based on what they expect. And what they expect could be based on their past experience, it could be based on their personal view of their entitlement, it could be based on so many other things, but it is ultimately their responsibility to navigate that emotional energy within themselves. So when it comes to setting boundaries with people that have been in your life for a while, so there's existing dynamics in the relationship that you have with those people, you likely have like a standard with those other people, like the existing dynamics, because you've been in each other's lives for a while. So you just say, usually every time they ask if you can drive them somewhere, you've said yes. Like every single time in the past, for the past 5 years, you've said yes every single time. But this feels really draining for you, so you don't want to do it anymore, and you want to set a new boundary that if something feels draining, you are not going to do it just because someone asked you to. So if that's your boundary, the next time they ask if you can drive them somewhere and you say no, that's going to feel really unsettling to them, because there's an existing dynamic where they ask you to drive them somewhere and you say yes. That's the dynamic. but you want to shift that. And there's two ways you can go about this. You can communicate clearly once you've made the boundary, or you can just uphold the boundary. Upholding the boundary looks like you just saying no when they ask. No. No is a complete sentence. You don't have to justify yourself. You don't have to explain yourself. So when you say no in that instant, that is perfectly okay for you to do. You can also expect that they're going to have some kind of reaction to that, especially if it's standard behavior that they have experienced in the past. If they try to guilt you into changing your mind, if they get angry, if they have some kind of emotional response, you can again have your clear boundary that other people's emotions are their responsibilities to deal with. It's not your responsibility. And you can just hold that strong boundary in place from the beginning, that it's like, no, their reaction is not mine to deal with. Another way you can go about this, and I think this is really important when it comes to relationships that we want to continue having really good relationships like with these people in the future, is to communicate our new boundaries from the beginning. If we say to this person, hey, I have this new boundary, I'm not going to drive you places anymore. And you can word it however you like. You can communicate what the boundary is, why it's important to you, and what the consequence will essentially be if they try to breach it or try to push you on it. You can communicate as much as you like. That is completely up to you and in your realm of leadership. You can say something like, I know that I've driven you a lot of places in the past, and I didn't mind doing it in the past. Like, that was my choice and I'm earning that. However, going forward, I'm really prioritizing my energy. When I do this every single day for you, it feels really draining for me. And I don't want to continue in that energy of being drained going forward. So I won't be driving you every day anymore. This is really important to me because my energy is really important to me right now. And I hope you understand and respect that. You can say something like that. You can adjust it to whatever language feels good and whatever feels good within that relationship. And again, when you communicate it like that, if you clearly communicate why it's important to you, then you're kind of neutralizing a charge for them to try to rebuttal you or try to change your mind on it. And they can, of course, they can be really dismissive of that. They can be like, oh, yeah, whatever. And then the next day ask you to drive them again. And that's when it becomes really important for you to hold your own boundary and to keep your word on the boundaries you set. Because if you communicate boundaries to all these relationships, but then you don't actually hold them, that's the standard that you are setting. So know what the boundaries you want are, and then you can expect that there will be some unsettled energy within the dynamics of the relationships that you have that are existing. And it's only because that energy has been set in the relationships. And even though they may feel disappointment now, which again, that disappointment is their emotional responsibility, even though they might feel disappointed now, they will ultimately have more respect for you later and have more respect for the way you want to be treated later. And you communicating your boundaries is you communicating to people the standard of respect you want from them. And if they can't meet you at that level of respect, then it could be time to question if that relationship is one that you want to have continue in your life. And I know that this can sometimes feel really challenging when it's with family, when it's with people that we want acceptance and approval from. Trust me, I know it can feel really hard and difficult, but the more we hold our boundaries, the more we shift those dynamics into dynamics that are acceptable for us. And something that can happen when we start to introduce boundaries is that other people may have really like reactive responses where they try to just create a boundary out of their reaction. And that may be them creating a boundary in a disempowered way. And again, that is theirs to navigate, and you can choose to respect the boundaries they put in place, Or you may activate and inspire others to communicate the boundaries that they have been wanting to communicate with you as well. But just expect that there's going to be some unsettled energy for a space in time for these new dynamics to set in place. And when the new dynamics are set in place, you've created a new standard for how other people interact with you and how you interact and respond with others. Okay. So boundaries allow you to stay in your power and in your high standard energy, and you deserve to experience the full potency of your power. You just do. So I want to talk a little bit about the difference between a boundary and a standard. A boundary is something that needs to be upheld, that needs to be enforced. People will try to cross your boundary line, and it's up to you to hold your boundary in place. We'll just stay with the same example that if you have a boundary that you're not going to drive this person anymore, but they ask you, can you drive me here? It is your responsibility to then be like, no, I cannot, to hold it in place. So boundaries we hold. And sometimes this can be a little stress triggering or trigger a bit of anxiety to think, oh my God, like people are going to try to cross my boundary line and then I'm going to have to say it to them. And we're going to talk a little later in our practice about neutralizing that feeling of anxiousness or fear about people potentially crossing our boundary line or trying to cross our boundary line. And again, communicating in advance can assist with that, but we can also ground ourselves to not have that energetic charge when it comes to the potential of someone possibly trying to cross our boundary. So a boundary are things we uphold, whereas a standard is something that our energy effortlessly holds in place. So people don't even try to cross that line because it is just the standard. It is just what it is. And some things may come to your mind for changes you made in your life where initially it was like a boundary, like you had to communicate it a lot, but now it's just like it is what it is, and no one even tries to breach on that. And like an example for me is about, oh, it was probably about 5 years ago now. I started to sleep with my phone on flight mode. So like, and sometimes like I would get messages, I would wake up to messages like in the middle of the night from usually just from my mom or my siblings, like trying to ask me questions or asking me to take them somewhere or something like that. And I would reply to them when I woke up and took my phone off flight mode. And initially there was like some like kind of like push energy, like, what if there's an emergency? You need to respond to me whenever I message you, like blah, 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 blah. But now it's just the standard that everyone in my life knows that I'm not accessible to speak to you when I'm sleeping. I'm not going to wake up in the middle of the night for a phone call. And if there was an extreme emergency, there is the house phone to call, which no one usually does. But if there was an extreme emergency, like someone could reach me through that. But they know that there's no way I'm going to reply to a text message. There's no way I'm going to reply to a social media message when I'm asleep or at nighttime. And that's a little example. And, another one for me personally is when I stopped eating meat about 3.5 years ago. It was like a boundary for me at the time. It's like I'm not putting meat in my body. But it was a shift from the norm because usually at every family event I would eat meat. And there was so much kind of push on that while I was just experimenting with it, and people just like being like, oh, you can just eat it this once, like, or it doesn't matter, like it's just a little bit, blah, blah, blah. But I was clear, like, no. And that was something I really had to enforce and communicate so many times. But now it's just a standard. Like everyone in my family knows I'm not going to eat meat at a family dinner, and it just is the way it is, and no one tries to cross me on that line anymore. So you may have some examples for yourself, where you think about a boundary you to put in place, and now it's just an effortless standard. It's not something you need to worry about enforcing anymore, because it is just accepted in the relationships that you already have. Setting our boundaries are stepping stones, and it's a really important stepping stone because it's a declaration of the energy and the standard of energy that is worth holding for ourselves. And if we want to have really strong standards that are effortless, we need to learn how to hold our own boundaries in place, because then it's kind of like spirit, or a higher field of energy takes hold of our boundaries so that we don't have to consciously hold them anymore. A higher field of energy holds them for us. And in when it crosses over between us holding the boundary and it becoming an energetic standard, it's like we free up energy to then direct our inner energy into other things. But the boundaries are the first step, and we can create really loving and beautiful boundaries that really allow us to honor our energy at a whole new level. So there is no question at all around if you are worthy or deserving of having strong boundaries. This is it's innately whole and absolute. Like, it is true. That is just a fact. You are so deserving. You're so worthy. And there's just no question around it. So if you have any doubt around, can I really put this boundary in place? Like, am I really deserving to have the space that this boundary would allow? The answer is yes, absolutely yes. There is no question. And you can really surrender those questions over to spirit, surrender those questions over to your higher self, and know that you're so deserving. There's no question about it. But I also want you to give yourself the grace, if you have experienced conditioning around what you have felt like you had to do in the past to receive and to feel love and acceptance. There are two fundamental core human fears, and they are the fears of rejection and abandonment. So if as a child you experienced a link in the relationship between fear and abandonment and things that you had to do, this has most likely shaped your relationship with other people and the things you feel you need to do for other people, and in turn the boundaries you have around your own energy and the boundaries that you have with other people. So give yourself the grace to really acknowledge where those feelings of rejection and abandonment have come into play when it comes to your personal boundaries, and know that you are the leader, you are the queen, and now it's not too late for you to reshape those relationships, reshape those dynamics, neutralize the charge of that fear, and to set boundaries that really allow you to honor your energy and your high standards and your vision and your impact and just the amazing person that you are at a whole new level, your queen level standards. You have so much to give. And when you have strong boundaries, you give in a much more powerful way that also leaves you feeling nurtured and fulfilled. And like there's a beautiful equal balance of giving and receiving, and that you're not always being the over giver to the point that you're depleted. Your boundaries allow for your potent energy to stay in your body, for you to feel it, for you to experience, for you to feel fulfilled and nurtured. Okay, so I want you to get a journal and a pen. If you don't already, you can pause this video or take a moment to go and get that. So we're going to do a little practice. And this practice is all about neutralizing the energy of fear or anxiousness or any other kind of static emotional energy. Not static, what's the word, kind of like all over the place, emotional energy that is in your body when it comes to thinking about or actually holding a boundary in place. So I want you to write down some boundaries that you would love to create, that you would love to have in your life, both internally and externally. So internally, like boundaries you hold for yourself or standards you hold for yourself, and externally, like boundaries that you hold with other people. And I'm going to read just some examples. And the thing about your boundaries is that they are really specific to you. They're really specific to the way that you want to experience your own energy. So what I'm going to go through are just some generalized examples that might prompt some ideas, but I want you to make them really clear and specific to your personal life. So some examples for internal boundaries may be that Monday is a rest day. So the boundary is that I never put pressure on myself to be productive or to work on a Monday. It could be I turn my phone off before I go to sleep. This could be external as well, like linked to when you're available for communication. It could be I create before I consume every day. So a boundary around the like reading things or watching things or doing anything before you've created something for yourself. It could be that I don't entertain self-doubt. If self-doubt thoughts come up, I do not entertain them. Like that's a boundary in my mind that if thoughts of doubt come up, they're gone, delete them. They're invalidated, and I don't entertain the possibility that they may be true. It could be if I have a feeling of anger, I allow myself to be alone for an hour to process it or something like that. So what are some like internal boundaries, some internal standards you want to set for yourself? And then externally, it could be that comments on my body are not accepted and not tolerated. And the consequence could be you don't need to set consequences for all of them, but if it's with like a specific person, it could be that if someone starts speaking about your body, you walk away. Full stop. You don't need to justify that. It could be that I'm not available to reply to messages after 8 p.m. or after whatever time you want. It could be I don't accept messages from clients or from certain people as a text message or in a certain format. Like it needs to be through email or Voxer or like whatever else my standard is. It could be like I only communicate through text message, or I only communicate this way. Anything else I will not respond to. It could be that I don't allow random visitors to come visit my house. Like they have to message me a day in advance, or they have to call me first. And that could be with certain people, or it could be with everyone. It could be I don't give away coaching for free, or I don't give away my paid services for free ever. If someone wants it, then they pay me for it. That's my boundary. It could be do not touch my body. My boundary is I do not allow people to touch my body. And if people do, then people try to, then what happens? And this could be in specific relationships. If you're not comfortable with a certain person hugging you or touching you or doing something that maybe they have done in the past, like it's okay for you to set a new boundary around that. If some random, like I was shopping the other day and the old man that works there like put his hand on my back, and I was like, excuse me, like do not touch my body. Like it was not acceptable for me in that moment. And we can have boundaries like that. We don't have to accept things that we don't like. It could be I don't go out or I don't go to events on weeknights. It could be like I don't share my password. And there's so many more like kind of intimate and specific boundaries we can have in certain relationships. We can have different boundaries like with our kids, to our partners, to romantic relationships, to our parents, to our siblings, to our friends, our family, co-workers. We can have really specific boundaries. And the thing is that we don't have to make a million rules that we're going to be really rigid in living our life to. We don't have to do that at all. I think the most important boundaries to set first is around anything in your life right now that compromises your feeling of safety. If you ever feel unsafe or uneasy or resentful or anything, any of those heavy emotions in certain situations that are currently existing in your life, then they're the priority to set boundaries around. And boundaries are not a set of rigid rules. Boundaries can be flexible. We can, of course, make exceptions when we deem it appropriate to do so. Like, for example, if we have the boundary that I don't go out on weeknights, but then on a Thursday night, it's like our best friend decides to have their wedding that day for some reason they want it on a Thursday night. Of course, we can make that exception if we want to, if it feels aligned for us. But we can also feel safe that our boundaries are there if it's also something that we don't want to do or that is going to make us feel unsafe to do. So list those boundaries that you would really love to have in place right now. Excuse me. Okay, so as you're writing these boundaries out, I want you to look at them. You can pause this video if you need to. I want you to look at them one by one. And as you're writing it or as you're reading it, I just want you to notice how it feels in your body when you're thinking and writing about that particular boundary. It may feel completely neutral. You may feel like a little pit in your gut, like even thinking about it. Could feel like a shiver down your spine. Like, just notice, be an observer. There's no right or wrong. How does thinking and writing down that boundary, I was thinking about and writing down that boundary, how does that impact your body? What visceral feelings come up? So after you've done that for every single thing that you've listed, just note down how it feels in your body, like what you notice straight away. Then I want you to read it out loud. Read the boundary out loud. And I want you to read it out loud in the way that you would communicate it to someone. So just say you don't want your mum to buy your kids toys anymore, as an example. You could say it out loud as, "Hi, mum. I really appreciate all the toys you've bought the kids over the years, but we will not be accepting any more toys for the kids from you. If you do buy them more toys, I will donate them immediately and they will not receive them." And of course, word it in the way that you actually would want to communicate it. And I want you to say it out loud as if you're telling it to another person. If it's a boundary that you're setting for yourself, say it like you're looking in the mirror and telling your own reflection. And after you have read each of them out loud, pause this video to give yourself enough space to read each of them out loud as if you're actually communicating it. And again, I want you to notice where you are feeling it in your body. Where is it in your body? If it's an easy boundary to put in place, then you're likely not going to feel much of a charge in your body. But if this is a boundary that entices a lot of fear, then that is a really beautiful indication that this is such an important boundary for you to have. And it is such an important boundary that needs to be communicated in a way that allows you to feel safe and to feel safe to hold your energy to that new standard. So there's no right or wrong. I just want you to notice, like, how does it feel in your body to imagine that you're saying these words to someone else? And if it's a person that in the past may have had really like triggered responses to you trying to say no to them, there might be a really big charge. And again, at the moment, like, you are so safe just saying these words out loud, like not to anyone else right now, but just notice how it feels. Pause the video if you need to. Okay, so now for every boundary that you want to create again, we're going to go through it again and saying it out loud one more time. And this time I'm going to introduce this little practice for you. So I want you to put your left hand on your lower belly over your womb space and your right hand over your heart, and just start by taking like 3 deep belly breaths. And as you're taking these breaths, inhaling through the nose and then out, exhaling through the mouth. And now keep breathing and imagine a golden light circulating within your sacral center, within your womb, in your lower belly. There's a golden light circulating here, and this golden light moves up to your heart space, circulates there, and then moves back down. There's a beautiful loop of giving and receiving of golden light between your heart and your womb space. And I want you to say to yourself 3 times, I am safe having this boundary. I am safe having this boundary. I am safe having this boundary. And keep taking these deep breaths, keep neutralizing any fearful energy or any energy that's in your body that is attached to these boundaries or the potential of setting these boundaries in place. And now, keeping your hands on your belly and your heart, I want you to go through each boundary again. And I want you to do that breathing and say that mantra 3 times for every boundary. So you take 3 deep breaths and repeat, I am safe having this boundary 3 times. And then say your boundary, communicate your boundary out loud again, as if you're communicating it to the person that it needs to be said to. And then taking 3 deep breaths with the golden light after you've communicated it, and allowing that golden light to neutralize the fear, neutralize the heaviness, and to allow you to feel grounded and safe in communicating these boundaries. So pause the video and go through each of your boundaries now. Okay, so when you come back, so you've gone through all of them, you've grounded your energy, you've neutralized some of the charge for all of them, and there may still be a little bit of a charge when it comes to thinking about communicating these boundaries and to holding them in place. And I want you to know that that's okay, that that is normal, and that you've already begun the process of your body feeling safe having these boundaries. And the more you uphold them and the more you return to that deep breathing and that neutralization of fear, the easier it will be for these boundaries to progress to the level of standard where your energy upholds them on their own without your conscious input. A little practice I want to offer you as well for when it comes time to actually communicating these to the actual person is to, you can do that deep breathing with that like womb heart connection, and to also just visualize a glowing rainbow light form around you. And as the rainbow light forms around you, set the intention that any emotional energy that is not yours will not be allowed in this field. So any emotional energy that is not your responsibility will not penetrate this rainbow light. It will not penetrate into your emotional energy. It will not enter your body. And you can hold that rainbow light of protection around you when it comes time to communicating your standards. And you can come back to that deep breathing to really ground in your body and to neutralize any fear before it comes to communicating. And then what's really important is after you communicate these boundaries and every single time you hold them in place, like every single time you have to hold them in place, I want you to ground, and get back into your body and get back into your energy. And every single time you do that, you transcend fear and you elevate, you increase the flexibility of your nervous system, and you ground yourself and you anchor yourself into a new standard of energy and a new standard of safety. And your body knows that it is so safe to hold these boundaries. So new standards and new boundaries will likely appear in your awareness to then set even higher levels, to have even higher access to your beautiful energy. So I hope you enjoyed that practice. And this is something you can come back to again and again and again whenever there are new boundaries that you want to put in place. Okay, so the last thing we're going to do is go on a little guided inner journey. So for this, you can lay down or you can stay seated up. It is completely up to you. I'm going to put on some music to have in the background and take a quick drink. So make any adjustments that you need to. Get really comfortable. And when you're ready, shut down your eyes. And just start taking some really deep breaths. Breathing in through the nose and gently out through the nose. Letting your shoulders relax. Letting your face and jaw soften. Letting your entire body become soft and relaxed. Breathing in and out through the nose. And in this inner journey, I invite you to play with the potential of your energy here. There are no limits within the field we're about to enter. And in your imagination, I want you to see a portal. And the portal just may appear as an archway with light that is inviting you to move through it. On the other side of this portal is a different realm that reflects the inner energy of your body and subconscious mind. When you're ready, step through the portal. In this realm, you are simply a witness. You're a witness to the reflection of energy from within your body and subconscious mind. And as you come onto the other side of the portal, you see a throne, a beautiful, divine throne that you know is yours to sit on. And on this moment, within this realm of energy, it's your official coronation day. The day that you anoint and crown yourself queen of your inner world. Do you feel deserving to be queen? And you spot yourself. You see yourself in this realm. And you see yourself walking up to the throne with your guides by your side. And you see that this version of yourself looks confident in her knowing that she is so deserving of the throne. You see her continue walking towards it, but before getting to the throne, you and your guides stop to the table that has papers sitting on it. The papers you see on the table are titled Rules of the Queendom. These rules shall be your standards. And you see yourself begin to write the rules down. They are your decree. And you are deserving of any standards that you declare for yourself and for your queendom. In this realm, these standards are so as soon as they are declared. In your 3D realm, they would come over time to be in full effect. I want you to note down the rules that are being written on this paper. What are the standards that you are declaring for yourself? What are the standards that you know you are so deserving of? What are the standards that you are setting for yourself in your queen, fully embodied energy. And once you have decided and declared your new standards, you see yourself take the seat on your throne. You sit on the throne. You put your crown on your head. You are the self-anointed queen. You are the self-anointed leader. You are the queen of your internal energy. And as queen, you decide how deserving and worthy you are of your boundaries, of your standards. What are your standards for receiving? What are your standards for giving? What are your standards of leadership? What are your standards with money and wealth, with pleasure and your connection to your body? What are your standards for the behaviors you tolerate around you? You are the leader and the queen of all of these standards. And it is by your decree that they are held in place and followed within your queendom. There is no question of how deserving you are. You simply are. I want you to bask in this feeling of ruling and of leading your inner world. I want you to bask in this feeling of being so deserving of this experience. And now I invite you to play with your potential and imagine how your queen energy will be reflected in your outer world. How do you embody your inner queen energy? How do you embody how deserving and worthy you are in your outer 3D reality? How are these new standards reflected in your life? You don't have to have all the answers. Simply imagine. Imagine having these new standards. Imagine being in your queen energy. Imagine you feel so deserving because you are. And now I want you to place your left hand on your belly and your right hand on your heart. And take this moment to invite the feeling of deservingness into every single cell in your entire body. Feel deserving right now. Feel loved and desired and grateful and honored and like the leader you are right now. We'll take 5 more deep belly breaths. And when you're ready, you can gently open your eyes, coming back into your physical world, coming back to your breath and your body. If you have your journal with you still, I invite you to write a little reflection on your experience in that inner journey. Note down anything that came up. Note down how it felt to feel fully deserving and like you're in a queen within your body. And have a really beautiful reflection on that experience and on any new energy you're feeling around having your high standards and your boundaries. I want to thank you so much for being here. I hope that you feel more deeply connected to how deserving you are to have high standards in your life. And I hope you feel more grounded and safe around having, communicating, and holding really beautiful boundaries in your life. It is so important for you to experience the full potency of your power and having high access to your energy, which are things that you are just so deserving of, which are so important when it comes to making the big impact that I know you are here to make. If you have loved this video, then I would love for you to take a screenshot or share on your Instagram story in any way that you are here, tag me, and I will reshare you. And thank you so much for being here. So thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this. Feel free to send me a message with any questions. And I'm so excited for you to set really beautiful and strong boundaries in your life.